and today I'm going to do my updated foundation routine for you, and I'm going to try to make this as in-depth as possible. I'm going to talk about brushes, I'm going to talk about color corrections, I'm going to talk about color matching, and I'm going to talk about everything I do, just have like a perfectly flawless full coverage foundation routine for daily looks or for nighttime or for anything, just how to get like that perfect skin using makeup. I know I said that I was going to keep it Halloween videos for the rest of the month of October, but then I got my first actual request from a YouTuber named Squeaky. Thank you so much, Squeaky. I appreciate the request so much, and I'm so glad that this is something that you want to see and something that I can, you know, give you some guidance on. And I just appreciate it so incredibly much. I'm also at 39 subscribers, which is just making me feel so incredibly blessed. Thank you so much, you guys. Keep on subscribing for my giveaway. I just appreciate it so much. You don't even know, like. And here is just like a super all-encompassing foundation routine video to get flawless skin. And if you would like to see how I do my foundation on the daily, then please keep watching. So first I want to talk about brushes. Foundation brush, I think, is sort of the key to having perfectly blended, smooth, and flawless looking foundation, no matter what the foundation is that you're using. Now, I have some pretty dry skin. It's somewhat normal and somewhat sensitive, but for the most part, I would say that I have dry skin, and so this isn't really gonna be for oily people. However, you can take all the techniques that I use for my dry skin and just apply it to like your needs, such as, you know, you probably use powder foundation, and I can't do that because that'll just dry me out completely. But if you do use powder foundation, some of the techniques I use with the application and whatnot, you can apply to your own routine. So just keep watching. So I use this Real Techniques buffing brush. This is the brush. It's got nice dense bristles and a rounded top, and as you can see, it's got a little bit of wear and tear. It's also a tiny bit dirty right now, but this is the brush that I use for my foundation on the daily. Now, if you watched my old foundation video, okay, excuse how dirty this brush is. I used it for some clown makeup. I used this flat top little foundation, like kabuki type thing from Tweezerman. I've discovered ever since I got this Real Techniques one from Ulta that the round top and just like the softer bristles, while they're still pretty dense, they're still really soft, and I think they just do a much better job of blending. And the rounded top can get in some corners, much like corners of the face, such as like the corners of the nose and whatnot, a lot better than the flat top foundation brush. So I'd highly recommend getting this. You can get this at Ulta in a little set of Real Techniques brushes. It comes with this concealer guy, comes with a little accent brush, and it comes with like one of those like flat foundation brushes, which I don't ever use for foundation. If you do and you like that, then go ahead, you just do you. I just prefer to use a brush like this guy. So I would highly recommend those Real Techniques brushes. It was $18 to get that set, and they're super high quality. I actually had to look up whether they're synthetic or natural, and they are synthetic, and I would always recommend using synthetic bristles for any cream or liquid products, because any natural bristles are just gonna soak it up, and they're gonna harbor more bacteria. They're gonna soak up and waste your product, and just as your natural hair would like to soak up oils and moisture, bristles in a brush will do that as well. So synthetic brushes for your cream and liquid products. For powder products, go natural all day. They're gonna be super soft and high quality as well, but don't buy into the misconception that synthetic brushes aren't going to be soft and high quality, because they are, and these ones are great. So the Real Techniques brushes, I would say, are my holy grail for foundation brushes, and there are a lot of others that you can use. A lot of people like flat top kabuki, such as, you know, Sigma is quintessential holy grail F80. I think that once this one, you know, kind of starts to fail just from repeated washing and repeated use, and I need to get another one, I'll try the Sigma F82, because it's the Sigma dupe of this, and I didn't buy it because I'm really happy with this cheaper one I got at Ulta, but I think I'll try the Sigma next once this one fails on me. I like to have a nice fluffy powder brush. I did learn in school to use more of like a flat, dense brush, like the foundation brush that I was talking about earlier for applying powder, but I honestly don't worry too much about setting my face anyways because it's dry. You might want to try a more flat, dense brush for applying your powder if you're oily, but I only set my face to keep it from creasing. I don't need to set it to keep it from wearing off because of oil because I'm so dry. So I like to use the Sigma F30, just a nice fluffy powder brush. These are a dime a dozen. I just like this one because bristles don't fall out at all. That's something that you just can know with your Sigma brushes. That's why I like it so much. And this one's the F30. Yeah. Yes. I want to talk about stippling brushes for a second. I really don't like them for foundation, and here's why. These brushes, this one's the Sigma one, and don't get me wrong, this is an amazing brush. I just don't like it for foundation. I cannot get my camera to focus on this brush, but it's just your basic stippling skunk brush, dual fiber. It has a lot of different names. I don't like it because the bristles are just not dense enough to hold product and to distribute it well. Now, you can use this brush for after you've already buffed in your foundation and you just want to give it like a second, I don't know, blending, just to soak up maybe excess product or just make it look a little bit more airbrushed. This brush would be great for that. I would just never recommend putting it in like a concentrated amount of product because it'll just make each bristle stick together and not distribute the product well, and it'll just make the brush dirty quicker. So I don't like those. However, if you do want a duo fiber just for like a second all over blend, just for like a more airbrushed effect, you can get one. This one's really cheap at Walmart. It's just an e.l.f. one. It's a little smaller. I use it for blush personally, but that's a totally different video. But yeah, you can get a duo fiber for that purpose. I just don't think it's necessary to have, and I would not use it for my foundation personally. For concealer, I use this one for my concealer every single day. I use this concealer brush that came with the Real Techniques brushes. I'm sorry if this is out of focus. This is the best I could get it to focus on the brush. Having a little trouble. But it's a nice fluffy brush. It's really similar to the buffing face brush, except it's smaller and it's like just a tiny bit more like pointed. So it's going to be really great for blending concealer into those like tight spots like under your nose or under your eyes or wherever you might be. And so I really like this brush. Like I said, it doesn't soak up too much product, but it soaks up enough to where you don't have too much excess, and it just blends super beautifully. For a synthetic brush, it really does behave like a natural hair brush in how dense and soft and just really good at blending it is. So I would highly recommend this one. This is my favorite one. A lot of people talk about like the F86 being a really great one. I like the E60 for like sort of smaller concealer blending. But other than this, I think this one is very affordable and very good at what it does. And I just think that as far as concealer brushes go, this can be your holy grail. So that's my whole spiel on brushes. Now you know what I use. I just pretty much make use of these three. And so, yeah. Color matching and skin tones, I've found that I really think that my skin tone is just neutral because I can make a cool tone foundation and a warm tone foundation work on me. I sort of just tailor it to the look. Like if I'm going for a more gothy thing and I want to look just more like ashy and corpsey, then I'll use a cool tone foundation and it works on me. And then if I just for my everyday wanting to look like dewy and healthy, I use a more warm tone foundation. And so as far as color matching yourself, the majority of people are going to be warm toned. That's something I learned in school. The darker the complexion, the more warm you want to go. Like a super, super dark girl, if you're a woman of color, you do not want to use a cool tone foundation because it's just going to make you look super ashy and not as healthy and glowy and beautiful as you could look. So you're going to want to go for a warm tone foundation always, the darker you are. And for the most part, just go for the warmer tone in your shade. If you're like a redhead or I guess albino, like super just light like that, you're gonna be a cool toned. You're gonna have a lot more pink skin. You're just gonna wanna use a cool tone foundation. And typically your lightest shade in a line of foundations is gonna be your cool tone. So you can go with that one. You can go to a makeup counter or wherever and get color matched. I have heard horror stories of getting color matched at Sephora and then just being completely unprofessional and doing it incorrectly and just slapping it on there and not knowing what they're doing. I've heard great things about going to a Bare Minerals store and getting color matched. I know those aren't as common as like a Sephora or a Ulta, but just beware. You can go get color matched, but just be wary of the situation. Like they could be doing it wrong. Now I'm going to show you how to color match yourself based on what I know. I mean, I'm already comfortable with the colors I buy and knowing what I can wear, so I'm not sure how valuable it is going to be to show you on myself. But when I've color matched other people, I will typically just take a look at their skin, just see right off the bat whether I think it's warm or cool. Their veins, I look at the veins. They could be a little bit more green or a little bit more purpley blue. Mine are a little bit more green, and it might be kind of hard to tell, and it is hard to tell. But if they're more green, then they're gonna be closer to yellow on the color wheel, which means the skin is gonna be more warm toned. And then obviously if they're closer to bluish purple, then they're gonna be more cool toned. So you can basically go off of that. And then for color matching yourself, I would typically look at your like decollage. Try to skip this area because it tends to be more red because we wear low-cut tops and it gets more exposed to the sun. So try to move off to this area and look at, first off, you can see like, just get your idea whether you think you're warm or cool toned, and then just take foundations and honestly just rub them in, spot check until your foundation disappears. And I'll show you a little bit right now. I really like this foundation that I'm going to show you in the tutorial. I'm not sure how well it will blend in. Yeah. See, the color kind of disappears. You can't even tell it's there. So that's a really easy way to color match yourself. I'd always recommend doing it on maybe even your neck, but just right here sort of under the collarbone, because it's going to be a really good place to get a good gauge of what your color is, and always make sure that your face is matching your neck. So that's color matching. Next, I want to talk briefly about color correcting, and then we'll get into the actual routine. And so you have your different colors of concealer that you use that'll just basically be a light wash of a certain color that's meant to cancel out a certain color that you don't want. Now here I have a green and a purple. A purple is really good for covering up orangeness or jaundice, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but a lot of people can have like yellow, I don't even know, like it's not like actual jaundice, just like yellow discoloration, and I get that a lot, especially like around here. I'll get weird yellow discoloration. So a purple concealer, and as you can see, it's not like a super vibrant purple. It's not a super vibrant purple, it's just a super light wash of lavender, and that's going to be good for color correcting jaundice. Now, I do not have an orange concealer with me because I just don't typically use it, but I did learn in school that a really good way to cover up purple dark circles is with an orange toned concealer, and the one that my teacher had in school was this little one, NYX one, in a pot that wasn't like orange, but it was very orange toned, and she just taught us to put it under the eyes lightly and it'll cover up dark circles because orange can cancel out purple. Now I don't have one here to show you as an example because I don't really do that. I've come to peace with my dark circles and I just conceal them with my normal concealer and move on with my day, but you could use an orange tone to cover up purple. Okay, and lastly, this is what we all know. My video where I talked about covering nasty blemishes, a green toned concealer, and this is just this NYX stick one. Both of these are these little NYX sticks. They're called the Incredible Waterproof Concealer. A green tone is going to cover up your redness. Green cancels out red, put it over nasty blemishes or areas of extreme redness like I talked about in my other video, and that's just going to be a way for you to conceal your blemishes that you don't want showing up. So yeah. So that's it for color correcting. I think those are the main points: covering up jaundice, covering up dark circles, covering up redness, and then other than that, I think just your regular concealer and foundation will do the job for you. All right, so let's get into my foundation routine. Okay, so I'll always start with a cleansed and moisturized face. If you want me to make a video on my skincare routine, I can. It's obviously not going to be super useful because I do have acne, but I do have a couple of tips for making your skin feel really good. As funny as that sound, and just keeping it as clean as possible because you always want to have clean skin on your face, because if not, that's just gross. So clean and moisturized face. The first thing I'll do is prime. I've been in the habit lately of mixing primers. I've been mixing these two a lot. Drugstore, I don't really see any use in buying a high-end primer because I do sort of still have a mentality that primers are a gimmick, because moisturizer usually primes your face pretty well. But if you do have oily skin, you're gonna want a more mattifying primer. Obviously, that's just something that you need. But I've been liking primers because I just like the feel of them. I do think they make my makeup last a little bit longer, and I think they prevent carpet face, which is just something that I've sort of like coined for when your foundation just doesn't blend that well and it just sort of looks like cheap hotel carpet, like the texture. I just hate it. And so I do think using a pore filling primer will prevent that. And then I've been mixing it with a luminous primer because I'm just super into that super dewy, healthy looking skin, and I think mixing these two is pretty much foolproof. This is the NYX pore filler. I believe this is like $7, somewhere around there. And so this one's just really good for velvety, like a velvety canvas that, and it fills in your pores so that you have a layer before you go in with your foundation to keep from bacteria building up and to keep it from just filling up your pores and making your pores too obvious. And then this is the Almay Luminous Color Correcting Primer. It's kind of pink, So I would say that that will kind of help with any yellowness to your skin. But other than that, I wouldn't call it super color correcting. I don't know why it says that, but it does have a nice glow to it. So you'll get that like luminous underneath layer under your foundation to just help dewiness and glowiness. I will tell you an extra step to keep your skin matte if you don't like the dewiness, but I just really like to look dewy and glowy and healthy. So anyways, I'll just mix these two primers and I'll just take like the tiniest little bit of each, because primer is something that you want to use in moderation. You do not need a lot of it, and it's really nice because you never have to waste product. So you can invest in a high-end one. I just don't think it's necessary at all. I think the drugstore ones do the job just fine. And I'll just put that on the areas of my face, the central areas of my face. I usually do like this cheek area, my chin, my nose, and then my forehead, and I'll just buff it in with my fingers everywhere. You always want to have clean hands if you're going to touch your face during your makeup. And I'll just make sure that's nice and rubbed in, and then I'll just get this like sort of really light wash of glowiness. The camera's probably not going to pick up at all. I don't expect it to. And then I'll just get this nice velvety smooth finish from the pore filling primer that is just going to be like a really nice base for my foundation to go onto. So that's my priming routine. For oily skin, like I said, mattifying primer, this one will be great for that. For the dew, this one will be great for that. For just basic primer to just make your makeup last, I like the Rimmel Fix and Perfect primer. Last Mineral Veil primer, I actually got the little sample of it for my 100-point reward at Ulta, and that one was pretty good. It serves pretty much the same purpose as this. It just feels a little bit more clean, but kind of has a weird smell. One of the most amazing tricks ever. Wayne Goss made a video on it saying it's like the most like, I don't know, holy grail, like unknown, super awesome, mysterious foundation trick that will change your life, and it's true. It's a really good trick for making sure that your foundation will never look cakey, and just make sure it always has a natural finish. So you're going to want to take a mineral powder. I like to use this Avon Ideal Flawless powder. It's just the translucent one, so it doesn't have any color, and I just like to take it on my F30 and just do a super light wash of that all over the face. And since I have dry skin, this does make my skin really tight and it's not the best feeling, but it's a step that's really worth it for making sure your foundation is just super natural and beautiful looking. And so I'll just buff that all over the face before I go in with my liquid foundation. These Avon ones are great, and this big sort of little pot of it lasts forever. I prefer a loose powder to a pressed powder for this step because I just feel like you can get more, a bigger punch with a loose mineral powder just for that step. Next, I'm gonna go in with my liquid foundation. Pretty obvious. I've been using the Kat Von D Tattoo Lockit foundation. This is the only high-end foundation I've owned. It's the only It's the only one that I have ever bought. I wanted to get it because I tried it at Sephora and it was so full coverage that I was like, I need this. I love my coverage. And so I got it. I got the shade 45, which is gonna be your second lightest shade line of foundations, because the first one's obviously gonna be for those pink cool toned people, and then the second one is going to be your lightest warm tone one. And so this is the lightest warm tone one. It's got a little bit of a yellow tint, and I think it works really well on my skin tone because I am fair, but I am neutral and I like to look warmer just on the average day. I just think it makes me look more healthy and just adds to prettiness. So I'll just dip this into the product, and I use 3 pumps of it because I like my coverage, and if you don't have as much acne or as much redness as me, then totally you don't have to worry about that. And then I just buff it into the skin. And I like to do a base layer first. And when I say a base layer, I mean I'll just go through and press really hard and use circular motions and just buff that all over the face, not worrying too much about coverage, just worrying more about having one layer to sort of separate the layers where I'm concerned about coverage from my pores, if that makes sense. So I just buff that in super well. I'm not worrying about the coverage, like I said before. I'm just making sure that's buffed in really solidly. I sort of avoid my under eye area. Like, I still kind of take it near my under eye area, but I don't worry too much because concealer is thicker and is gonna cover up all the discoloration on the under eyes better than foundation will. Just make sure to get into the hairline. Usually this first step where I do the base layer is where I focus on the things I might forget later, like making sure to buff it into my hairline and these little like bald spots or whatever you'd call these up here. I just make sure this is the step where I just buff those in really well and get into the hairline on the sides as well so that you don't forget about that later. That's really important. Just buff that in there. I'll hit the ears with whatever product is left on the brush as I'm doing this. It's also the step where I'll make sure I blend down here so there's not a line of redness, because like I said, I do have redness, and if I don't make sure to do that, then you'll see like a red line. And so I buff it down there. When there's excess on the brush, I'll just buff it down my neck. And then I go in with just tapping motions everywhere just to help blend it, to make sure there's no like smearing looking type dizzles on your face, because then it's obvious that you're wearing foundation. So yeah. So like I said, that first layer wasn't worrying too much about coverage. That was more of just throwing on a base layer for the rest of the foundation to go on. So now I have about like 1 pump left on my hand, which is perfect. And I'll just go all over my face, especially in the areas where I have redness or breakouts. And the bridge of my nose is a big one. It's just super like reddish purple there. And so I just make sure I just like push the foundation in. And this brush is so great because just pushing and then like sort of spreading around what you're pushing is gonna blend it like so incredibly beautifully. And I don't know if the camera is capturing it, but I'm just getting this super natural, gorgeous finish to my foundation from putting that layer of mineral powder first. It's like an unbelievable technique. I don't even know why or how or the science behind it, but it's a really good technique. So what I'm doing is I'm dipping the brush into the product on my hand, and then I put it on in sort of like a patting and then just like a downward patting motion. And I just do that really fast. It's something you sort of have to get used to. I do the motion more in my fingers than I do in my wrist, and it's just something that you have to get used to be able to do it fast. I obviously do it every day, so I'm used to it by now, but yeah. And then when I'm going in like under my eyebrows and sort of on my eyelid, you don't have to worry about concentrating it in this area because you're likely gonna have eyeshadow and eyeshadow base anyways. But I just like to do this to cancel out any redness, also because I'm growing out my eyebrows and they're bushy and I want this to help cover up those hairs just a tiny bit. You've got this beautiful, super natural looking finish. Obviously, I don't have any contour or highlight, so my face looks like a round white blob, but my acne is covered, my redness is covered, and I just have this super natural, like super glowy looking, beautiful finish to my face. It's unbelievable, and all these techniques that I'm showing you and ways to like use your brush are just, that's how you do it. And this brush is so nice, you can just pat, 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 pat everywhere. And it's blended. So next is concealer. I'm not gonna do any color correcting right now because I just don't feel that I need to right now, but I do have a video on how to cover nasty redness and blemishes. I'll link it down below for you. So this Maybelline FitMe concealer, it's a shade Fair, which is number 15, and I am so incredibly impressed by this concealer for a drugstore concealer. It has great coverage, it doesn't crease too much as long as you set it, and I'm just so impressed by it, and I'm so relieved because I don't have to go and buy the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer once the one I have runs out, because I have this guy and I think it's like $8. So a steal, and it's a really good concealer. So when I use my concealer, I'll start by using it on my face to cover up just anything that needs extra coverage. I'll always run it down my nose because like I said, I get super reddish purple in that area and I hate it, and I need some extra coverage there. I just always do. Always get in these little corners here because they tend to crease, and then it tends to like bleed out from the crease if I only have foundation there, and it'll just be this like these like little red hoops under my nose, and I hate it. So I'll put it there, and then if I have any spots that need to be covered, I'll put them there. Little guy right here, little guy right here, and a little guy right here. I get these forehead lines right here, and it's the same sort of deal as the little area under my nose. I just like to take some lines right where it tends to crease to be buffed in later. I like to go under my eyebrows, and I usually do carve out my eyebrows with concealer after I've drawn them on, but I usually get really red there, so, and I also usually pluck daily, and so I'll just cover up that area with concealer anyways before I even draw on my brows, just for some extra coverage. Okay, so next I'll take my Real Techniques concealer brush, and I will just literally tap at that concealer, and it's got the best consistency because all you have to do is tap at it. You really don't have to like wipe at it and risk wiping off product, because you can just tap and it blends like amazing. And I'll just tap out everywhere that I put concealer. And that's just to blend the liquid. Set the concealer, try to set it immediately before it starts to crease. This will crease. I've never found a concealer that doesn't crease. I don't think it's possible. You can just set it with powder and you're good. This one's like $3 at Ulta. I'm super impressed by it. It does have talc, so if you are allergic to talc or talc does something bad to your skin, then skip this guy. You can use this Avon one too. I don't think it has talc. It also works for setting. I just really, really like this guy because I prefer pressed powders for setting. I don't know what it is, and as you can see, it's almost gone. I've like collected a bunch of my empties, so if you want to see an empties video by chance, then I can totally make one. I'm gonna have to buy a new of this guy, but I think it's like $3. So anyways, I'll just swirl the brush in there like so, and then I'll just set all the areas I put concealer, and I literally just tap it on there with the same brush. I use the same brush because it distributes the product well enough that I don't really have to worry about it. If you're oily, you're gonna want to set your whole face, and so I would recommend taking like your flat foundation brush or your fluffy, like your Sigma F30, and setting your whole face with whatever setting powder you like. I don't have to do that because I have dry skin, and I also like to maintain a dewy finish wherever I can, and so I really don't like to set my entire face. I just set where I put concealer so that the concealer stays and keeps the coverage in those areas. To my under eyes, and I do this after I do my face just because I want to prevent creasing as much as possible. So I'll just draw a line down and just sort of draw my lines this way, and then get this little inner part right here because it tends to be really reddish purple there, and then get close under my lash line. Just take my same brush and I'll tap that out, and you might have to use the same like push down motions just to make sure it's nice and blended, but typically this consistency of this concealer is so nice that you won't have to do that. I'll just set it with my same powder like before. Now the key to this is to set it with powder, and then you want to run your brush across and make sure there's no tug at all. You want it to just run completely smooth, and right now it is because I set it enough, but if you get any tug, then that means the product is still wet and you don't want that. So yeah. So that's it for my foundation routine. Now, if you're oily, you're gonna wanna go through and set the whole thing using whatever setting powder that you want. I don't do that because I'm dry, like I said before. I don't feel like putting on the rest of my makeup right now, but I would usually contour, highlight, do my eyes, do my brows, do my lips, do all that. But right now, I'm just letting you see the clean face, the perfect foundation. This is my foundation routine. I think it works really well. And thank you so much, Squeaky, for requesting this video. I was so incredibly stoked to do this for you, and I'm so happy that you wanna see what I do for my skin. I do believe that all like little techniques and tips that I talked about will work for you, will work for anybody. They're just gonna be great all around. And so thank you so much for watching. This has been my flawless foundation routine. Rate, subscribe, give this video, you know, your thumbs up and all that kind of stuff. And I'll see you guys later. Thank you for watching. Bye.